I didn't hate him. That's the part I need you to understand. I didn't scream in the shower. I didn't cry into pillows at night or tell my friends I felt trapped. He wasn't cruel. He didn't cheat. He didn't lie. He made coffee every morning before I woke up. He remembered how I liked my toast. He held me when I couldn't sleep. And still, every time he touched me, I felt like I was shrinking. Not because he was doing anything wrong, but because I was. Because I had already started pulling away long before my body did. And I didn't know how to tell him. You didn't change. But I did. We'd been together almost 4 years, moved in after 1, got a dog, shared a closet, picked paint colors together, made Sunday grocery runs a kind of ritual. His mom liked me. His sister sent me memes. I'd grown into his life like ivy on a wall, slowly, almost invisibly. I think I stopped noticing how tight it had gotten around me until I tried to move. I remember sitting in the parking lot of a Target one night, watching the rain hit the windshield, my bag full of shampoo and paper towels in the seat next to me, and thinking, if I just drive away, if I just keep going, what would actually happen? That thought didn't scare me. It comforted me. And that's when I knew something was breaking. But I didn't leave. Because there was no reason. No real reason. He was good, kind, patient, loyal, everything I thought I wanted. And I was tired. Tired of being the girl who ruins things. Tired of being the one who can't settle into comfort without itching under her skin. Tired of leaving men who didn't do anything but love me the way they knew how. So instead, I stayed and began to unravel quietly. I started volunteering for overtime, staying late even when I didn't need to, taking on extra shifts. I told him it was for the money, for the promotion. He believed me. He always did. I was good at sounding like I meant what I said, even when I didn't. At night, he'd reach for me and I'd lean in, because that's what you do when someone loves you, and you've already decided you're not allowed to break their heart. I let him kiss me, let his hands trace down my back. I moved the way I was supposed to. I made sounds. I looked him in the eye. But none of it touched me. When it was over, he'd smile, brush the hair off my face, say something soft like "you're perfect," and I'd nod with my eyes closed, trying to make myself believe I still belonged to that sentence. I thought maybe I was just numb. Maybe it was a phase. Maybe I'd come back to him eventually, like I always had before. But one night, I caught my own reflection while getting dressed. Just for a second. Bare legs, faded tank top, eyes that didn't match my face. And I felt nothing. Not shame, not regret, just absence. Like I'd been replaced by someone who knew how to play me better than I did. That night, when he wrapped his arms around me in bed, I didn't move. I stared at the ceiling and thought, if I made him leave me, would that count as leaving too? I met Alex at work, or near it. He wasn't in our office exactly. He worked for a vendor we partnered with, some IT solutions company that sent reps to check on our systems every few weeks. He came in with a badge, smiled too easily, said things like, "No worries, I got you," and walked around like he'd already been here 100 times. He wasn't my type. Not in any of the ways that mattered. A little too tan, a little too confident. Not cocky, just loose. Like he didn't care what anyone thought and probably hadn't for years. He had this laugh. Short, low in his chest, like he couldn't be bothered to laugh all the way. When he looked at me the first time, it wasn't with curiosity. It was with recognition. Like he saw the shape of something familiar behind my eyes and didn't need to name it. We only ever spoke in passing at first. Small talk by the printer, jokes about the office fridge, shared eye rolls during staff meetings. He asked me once if I wanted coffee from the place across the street. I said no. He brought me one anyway. The first time I thought about him, really thought about him, was when I was lying in bed next to my boyfriend, scrolling through emails, his arm across my waist, asleep and warm and steady. And suddenly I saw Alex's face in my mind. That slight smirk, the casual way he stood too close. I imagined what it would feel like to push into him instead of pulling away. And it made my stomach flip. Not because I wanted him, but because the idea of doing something I couldn't take back made me feel alive again. It didn't start as a plan. Not exactly. But I can't lie and say it was accidental either. I moved toward it with slow steps, deliberate, measured, almost scientific. I didn't flirt, not openly, but I let pauses stretch. I let our conversations linger 2 seconds longer than they needed to. I let my hand brush his once when we passed each other in the hallway and didn't apologize. One night, after work, I told my boyfriend I was going out with coworkers for a drink. I dressed down, jeans, hoodie, messy bun. I didn't want to look like I was trying. I just wanted to disappear into the night. He kissed my cheek, handed me a 20, told me not to stay out too late. I smiled, said, of course. Walked out into the cold with my hands in my pockets, heart already racing. I texted Alex, just, still around? He replied 2 minutes later. Just finished a meeting. You nearby? I said yes. He sent the address of a bar I didn't recognize. I took an Uber. It was loud, warm, wood-paneled. A small place, somewhere between casual and personal. He was already there, leaned back in a booth, sipping whiskey. I slid in across from him. He didn't say hi, just smiled and said, "You looked more tired in the office." I shrugged. I've been tired for a while. He nodded like he understood. We talked for half an hour. Not about much. Work, music, why we hated our phones. I told him I used to write poetry. He told me he used to teach yoga. It was the kind of conversation that fills the air without making it heavy. Easy. Surface level. Exactly what I needed. At some point, he reached across the table and touched my wrist. Just a thumb on my skin, warm and firm. He didn't move it. Just let it rest there while he asked if I wanted another drink. And I knew, right then, that if I said yes, I wasn't going home tonight. I said yes. When we left, it was raining. I didn't have an umbrella. He held his jacket over both of us, one arm around my shoulder, laughing about nothing. I don't remember what we talked about on the walk. I remember the sound of my boots on the pavement. I remember the buzz of the whiskey in my chest. I remember thinking, if I do this, I don't get to be the good one anymore. And that felt honest. His apartment was 5 blocks away. A walk up, minimal furniture, smelled like coffee and dust. He offered me water. I said no. I stood in the middle of his living room and looked at the art on the wall. Black and white prints, sharp, architectural. Everything about the space was temporary. The kind of place you don't decorate because you already know you won't stay. He stepped behind me, didn't touch me, just stood close. I could feel the warmth of him at my back, could hear his breath change as mine slowed down. He didn't say anything. Neither did I. When I finally turned to face him, he didn't ask what I wanted. He already knew. The first kiss wasn't explosive. It was quiet, almost unsure. Like we were both checking to see if it was real. His hands were on my waist, then under my shirt, then sliding around to my back. He kissed slowly, deeply, deliberately. Like he knew he wasn't the first. just the one who didn't need to matter. When he lifted me, I didn't resist. When he carried me down the hall, I didn't ask where we were going. I didn't even care if he took off the lights. I wasn't thinking about my boyfriend or the dog or the keys in my bag or what I'd say when I came home. I wasn't thinking at all. He touched me like he didn't expect anything after. No attachment, no performance. Just motion, heat, skin. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't tender. It was controlled, measured. And that's what I wanted. To be used just enough to make sure I couldn't take any of it back. After, we lay still. I didn't ask for a towel. He didn't ask how I felt. He just watched me from across the bed, his eyes low, unreadable. I got dressed in silence. He asked if I wanted to stay. I shook my head. He didn't follow me to the door. Outside, the rain had stopped. The streets were wet and quiet. I walked 2 blocks before I called a car. The driver didn't say a word. I watched the buildings go by and counted the minutes until I saw my street again. When I walked into the apartment, it was dark. The dog came to greet me. I bent down, kissed his head, whispered sorry into his fur. He was asleep on the couch. My boyfriend. One arm curled under his head, the other resting across a blanket I'd knitted 2 winters ago. His face looked soft, familiar, gentle in the way only someone who never saw it coming could be. I stood there for a long time, not moving. And I thought, I did it. I crossed the line. And now all I have to do is wait for him to find it. The morning after, I woke up before him. The sun was barely in the room yet. That soft, pale light that hits the far side of the wall and doesn't reach the bed. The dog was curled at my feet. He was still beside me, half wrapped around my body like nothing had changed. His breath warm against my shoulder, steady, unbothered, like it always was. I stared at the ceiling and thought, he's still here. I'm still here. Nothing's broken yet. And for a second, I felt panic. Not because I regretted it, but because I realized I'd done something irreversible, and it still hadn't worked. He stirred, kissed the back of my neck, whispered, "You're warm this morning." I closed my eyes and said, That was it. He got up, made coffee. I sat in bed pretending to scroll. My skin still smelled faintly like Alex. Something colder, sharper, a scent that didn't belong in this room. I pulled the blanket tighter around me, not because I was cold, but because I felt exposed, even in my silence. When I walked into the kitchen, he smiled and handed me a cup. "What time did you get in last night?" "Late," I said, eyes on the dog bowl. "We went to that rooftop place on 9th. He nodded. "Was it good?" "Too loud," I said. He didn't ask anything else. He never did. That afternoon, we went grocery shopping like nothing had happened. I remember standing in front of the produce section, holding an avocado, watching him pick out lemons and thinking how surreal it was that life didn't pause for any of this. That I could kiss another man, let him undress me, press me into his sheets, and still be here the next day, comparing yogurt brands like nothing had changed. But everything had. The difference wasn't in how I looked at my boyfriend. It was in how I didn't look at him. I used to catch myself watching him move, washing dishes, tying his shoes, folding laundry. I used to feel soft in those moments. Still, like I belonged somewhere. Now, I didn't want to see him. I didn't want to be reminded of how good he was. It made me feel cruel, like someone keeping a pet they'd stopped feeding. That night, when he kissed me, I flinched. Just a little. Barely noticeable. But he noticed. He pulled back, looked at me for a beat, then said, "You okay?" I nodded, Yeah, just tired. He didn't press. Instead, he pulled me closer, pressed his face into my hair, said, I missed you this week. I didn't answer. I didn't lie either. I just kissed his shoulder and let my hands rest on his back, still and useless. He started touching me more that week. Not constantly, not obsessively, just in little ways. A hand on my thigh during dinner, a slow pass behind me in the hallway, a kiss on my neck while I brushed my teeth. Like he was trying to remind me, we're still here. You're still mine. But each touch made my stomach turn. Not from guilt, from dread. Because I knew what was coming, and I knew I wasn't going to stop it. I saw Alex again the following Thursday. I didn't plan it. But I didn't not plan it either. I stayed late, pretended to be swamped. Texted my boyfriend that I might crash at Jen's place after work. He sent a heart emoji and told me not to forget to eat. I met Alex at a diner just outside the city. We sat in a corner booth far from the windows. He ordered fries and a milkshake. I got a club soda. We didn't say much. We didn't need to. Afterward, we ended up in his car. Not his place, not a hotel, just the back seat. Dark, quiet, closed off from everything else. He kissed me like he'd been waiting, like he knew exactly what I needed. Not affection, not warmth, just confirmation that I wasn't untouchable. When he slid his hands under my clothes, I didn't stop him. I let him move me, arrange me, take me. I didn't think about what he wanted. I only thought about what it would look like if someone else saw us. Some stranger passing by, seeing my face pressed to the window, my hand gripping the seat. The rhythm of something I'd never show in daylight. After, I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I just sat there, legs tucked under me, watching his fingers tap the steering wheel like he was already somewhere else. He asked, "You okay?" I said, Yeah. He nodded. He didn't ask about the boyfriend. He never did. And I think that's why I chose him. Because he didn't care who he was replacing. He didn't accuse me, not even once. But something shifted. He started watching me the way people watch for rain. Not directly, but through the corners of their eyes. Little changes. The weight of my answers. The time I took to come home. He'd ask how my day was and wait a second longer for my response, like he was listening for a note I hadn't hit before. I kept everything the same on the outside. Same grocery lists, same tone, same bedtime. But you can't fake presence. You can't recreate the texture of love once it's gone out of your skin. And he felt it. He started asking if I was happy. Not every day. Just when things were quiet. When we were brushing our teeth side by side or sitting on the couch with his hand on my knee and the TV humming in the background. Once he said, "You seem far away lately." I said, "I've just been tired." He nodded, but I could tell he didn't believe me. The way he touched me changed too. Not how often, but how it felt. He started reaching for me with more care, more patience, like he was trying to remind me of something we used to share. He'd hold me longer, look at me differently, say my name like he missed it. And I let him. I leaned into his arms, into his warmth, into the rhythm of our quiet evenings. But inside, I was somewhere else. Already gone. One night, after a long silence, he cupped my face in his hands and said, "Are we okay?" I hesitated. Just a breath. But enough. He caught it, his fingers stilled against my jaw. I said, "Yeah." "Why wouldn't we be?" He didn't answer. He just looked at me. Really looked. And in that pause, I saw it. The beginning of the knowing. The first thread pulled loose. The weight of an answer he wasn't ready to say out loud. The next day, he texted me mid-afternoon. "I love you. That's all." I stared at the message. Didn't type anything. Told myself I was too busy. But the truth was simpler. I didn't know how to say me too and mean it anymore. Alex started texting more often. Not affection, not attachment, just availability. "You free tonight? You want to meet again?" And I kept saying yes. He never asked questions. He didn't want to know how I was feeling or what I was thinking or what kind of life I was going home to afterward. And that made it easier, because he didn't want to hold any part of me. He just wanted to pass through. And I needed that. I needed someone who wouldn't notice when I went cold. But still, I began to wonder if Alex sensed it. Not the details, just the weight. He'd say things like, "You never stay long," or "You look different when you're buttoning your jacket." Once he looked at me and said, "You sure this is about me?" And I laughed. Too quickly. He smirked, but it didn't reach his eyes. At home, the quiet got heavier. My boyfriend tried harder. He brought home flowers, cooked new recipes, left sticky notes on the bathroom mirror like he used to. But it all felt like trying to water a plant that was already dead. He was reaching for something that had already slipped through my fingers. One night, I walked in and found him sitting in the dark, just a single lamp on. He looked up from his book and said, "Can I ask you something?" I nodded. My heart barely moved. He said, "Are you seeing someone else?" There it was. No drama, no raised voice. Just the soft, flat sound of a truth he already knew. I almost told him right then. Almost gave it to him. Simple, clean, no more pretending. But I didn't. 'Cause deep down, I knew if I told him the truth, he might still love me. He might stay. He might forgive me. And I couldn't bear that. So I said, "No." He looked at me for a long moment, then said, "Okay." And that broke something in both of us, because the silence after "okay" was louder than any confession I could have made. He stopped asking, stopped reaching for me in the dark, stopped texting to say he missed me, stopped watching me like he was searching for something. He gave up gently. That was the worst part. There was no fight, no demand, no confrontation. Just space. It was small at first. He didn't come sit beside me when I was on the couch. He started sleeping further away in the bed. He still made coffee, still folded my laundry, but it was all mechanical now. No notes, no humming in the kitchen, no weekend plans. One Saturday I woke up and he was already gone. No message, no "be back soon." Just silence. I stared at his side of the bed, the shape of him still faint in the pillow. The kind of absence that doesn't announce itself, but leaves a mark anyway. And I felt it. The success. The proof that whatever I'd set in motion had worked. I had broken something, and it couldn't be fixed. I spent the morning cleaning just to keep my hands moving. Vacuumed the hallway twice, rearranged the bookshelf, washed the towels even though they weren't dirty. Anything to stop myself from noticing how still the apartment had become. He came back in the afternoon, quiet, bag of groceries in one hand, headphones around his neck. I asked how his morning was. He said, "Fine." Then walked past me and into the kitchen like I wasn't even part of the sentence. That night we ate in silence. I used to think silence was peace. But this wasn't that. This was surrender. He wasn't asking anymore because he didn't want the answers. Because I'd trained him not to expect truth from me. He went to bed early. I stayed up, sat on the floor of the bathroom with the lights off, let the fan hum above me while I stared at the closed door. Alex texted, just, "You round?" I looked at the screen and felt nothing. Not excitement, not guilt, just blank. I didn't reply, because whatever I'd been trying to burn had already turned to ash. There was nothing left to destroy. I climbed into bed late. He was already asleep, curled away from me. I reached out slowly, touched his back, just with my fingers, just for a second. He didn't stir. He didn't move. But his whole body felt like a door that had closed and locked itself from the inside. I turned over and stared at the ceiling, and I thought, "You got what you wanted. Now live with it." It happened on a Tuesday. I came home late. The lights were on. The dog was asleep in the corner, tail thumping once when I walked in. His bag was by the door, a small duffel. The kind you pack when you're not sure how long you'll be gone. He was in the kitchen, sitting at the table. Not tense, not emotional, just still. He looked at me like someone who'd already said goodbye and was just waiting for the last line to fall. I stood there, keys still in hand, and said, "Hey." He nodded. "Can we talk?" I didn't sit. Just leaned against the counter like I needed something solid under me. He said, "I don't think this is working anymore." I didn't answer. He took a breath. "I don't know if you're seeing someone. I don't even think I need to know. But you're not here." "Not really. You haven't been for a while." I looked down at the floor, at the tile I'd swept 100 times, at the shoes by the door that didn't feel like mine anymore. He said, "I love you. I still do. But I don't want to stay with someone who looks through me when I speak." I closed my eyes, and for a moment, just a second, I wanted to beg. Not because I wanted him back, but because I didn't want to be the one left standing in the doorway with nothing to hold. But I didn't say anything, because he was right. He picked up his bag, patted the dog, walked to the door. Then he stopped, turned to me one last time. "You could have just told me," he said. I nodded. "I know." Then he left. No yelling, no final words, just the soft sound of a door closing behind the life we built. I sat on the kitchen floor for a long time, the light buzzing overhead, the air too still, the sound of the city outside feeling too far away to belong to me anymore. I thought about texting Alex. I didn't. Because whatever I thought I needed from him, it was already over. He was never the point. He was just the exit. Now there's quiet. Real quiet. Not the kind where you're waiting for someone to fill it. The kind where you realize you burned every bridge and there's no one left on the other side. And the worst part? It worked. He left. And now I finally have space to breathe again. But I don't know who I am in all this air.